11 plus. Now this stream also goes to our Facebook and our YouTube, so if this is for whatever reason hitting your algorithm for the first time, this is something we like to do on Sundays. If you happen to not be able to catch our 5:30 or 10 o'clock newscast, this gives you an overview of what to expect for the week ahead. So as always, if you're somebody that does frequent these weekly weather check-ins, I have comments open, so if you are on the Facebook or YouTube crowd on Facebook, you should be able to leave comments in the stream. So if you have a question about the forecast as we're going through, you can leave that question in the comments and I'll answer them. Same for the YouTube stream. You can leave a comment with your questions. And if you are watching on THV 11 plus and you can't do either with the Facebook or the YouTube, but you have a question, you can text that question in to 501-376-1111. So as I pull up our comments on each of those platforms, we will get started here in a second. Like I said, I like to give people just a quick moment to get in, whether you're somebody that tunes in regularly or if you're scrolling on your phone and you see this gives you an opportunity to be able to not miss any information. If you've been outside today, I'm sure you've noticed how windy it is. We're going to start with a look at some current observations with sustained wind speeds and wind gusts right now. I'll show you in a second the culprit for these breezy winds this afternoon, but here in the capital city, 20-mile-an-hour wind gusts, or 20-mile-an-hour sustained winds, excuse me, with wind gusts upwards of 29, almost 30 mile an hour. We do have 30-mile-an-hour wind gusts up in Fayetteville and northwest Arkansas, and just across the state, you see winds gusting between roughly 20 to 30, even 35 miles an hour. Very breezy situation out there, thanks to a bit of a pressure gradient that we are locked in right now. So we've got the high pressure off to our west, lower pressure off to our east over the southeastern United States. And these white dashed lines you see through the state and much of our neighboring states, those are those pressure markers. So wind direction is going to follow those pressure markers from high to low pressure, which is why we have winds coming from about the northwest or west northwest into the state this afternoon. Typically, the tighter you see those white lines or pressure markers together, the tighter your pressure gradient, which would mean the breezier the winds. Luckily, right now, we're just shy of seeing any wind advisories in effect across the state. But obviously, if you're out and about, you have been noticing that breeze. On the bright side across the state, we've got a lot of sunshine, no clouds to inhibit any of the sunshine anywhere in the state. Looking across the capital city, it's a beautiful sight out there. We've got those blue skies. Sunsets are creeping closer and closer to 6 p.m. today. We'll talk about that in a second, but give you a look at currents. We just talked about how breezy the winds are. Temperatures just a few degrees below what's considered the norm for this time of year. As we get into the end of February and beginning of March, what's considered normal or typical highs in those upper 50s and low 60s. So this feels more like a early February day, late January day in regards to temperatures. We're not going to get too much warmer through the afternoon, at best maybe 1 or 2 degrees more, but still generally considered below the norm for this time of year. Through the rest of the evening, wind speeds will still be a bit breezy. They calm down just a little bit though, so instead of seeing 20-mile-an-hour sustained winds, you may see between 10 to 15. Ultimately, as we get closer to sunrise on Monday, between 5 to 10. Still coming from the north though. I mentioned sunsets are getting later. Today will be our last sunset before 6 p.m. So tomorrow will officially be our first 6 p.m. sunset of the year. Sunset today is at 5:59. A week from today, we're seeing the sunset past 6 p.m. But check this out, 2 weeks from today, March 8th, when the daylight saving time kicks back in, we have our first 7 p.m. sunset. So we've got more daylight to take advantage of coming up over the next couple of days. I don't know if you can tell, I'm excited about it. I hope some of y'all are excited about it. That means we're finally starting to get into more of a spring pattern. So when you wake up tomorrow morning, as we were just talking about, things are getting a cooler. Even though we're starting to see a spring pattern, it is still technically winter out there. We're going to get a few more opportunities to remind us of that. So make sure you bundle up tomorrow morning. Make sure the kids are bundled up. We're starting the morning out below freezing for pretty much all of the state, roughly across central Arkansas, middle to upper 20s, but some of our neighbors up north could see some teens and right at the 20-degree mark. Harrison, 19 degrees your low on Monday morning. Mountain Home right at 20 degrees. Now, even places like Monticello, Pine Bluff, farther south, you got about a 10-degree spread, but again, you're still below freezing. So kids that might have to sit at the bus stop in the morning, make sure they have the coat, the gloves, the hat. As you, the adults, are headed to work or wherever you're headed in the morning, make sure you're bundled up because it is going to be a chilly one out there. Now, for the next couple of mornings, Tuesday morning, going to be another cold morning to remind you, hey, it is still February. It's still technically winter. Then we have a few what's considered relative milder mornings starting out in the 40s and the 50s. Now, for this time of year, what's considered a typical late February morning is in the middle to upper 30s. So cold, but just above the freezing mark. So compared to normal, we'll see some mild mornings around the Wednesday, Thursday time frame, middle part of the week. We have a cold front that moves through around Wednesday into Thursday. We feel those effects by Friday morning and into next weekend. Cooler the middle part of the week, but still warmer than where we technically should be for this time of year, waking up in the low to middle 40s through next weekend. Let's see how this plays out with afternoons, because you heard me just mention a cold front around the middle part of the week. So as you've noticed, this afternoon, pretty chilly with temperatures in the low 50s. Tomorrow, likely a little bit cooler. A few places will have a hard time to even reach 50 degrees, and that's just as those winds coming from the north, wind speeds do calm down a little bit, but winds still coming from the north as some high pressure starts to close in on our neighborhood. That's shifting east overnight into Tuesday. So winds starting to come from the south as opposed to the north, which brings some slightly warmer air in. So we see that warming trend Tuesday into Wednesday, where we go from below average to then above average in the 60s by Tuesday. Could see some 70s on Wednesday. I think personally I'm going to really like Wednesday. Now, even with that cold front I mentioned that moves through around Wednesday into Thursday, it only gives us about a 5 to 7 degree difference with temperatures. We go from low 70s to middle and upper 60s. So it won't completely give us a dramatic cool down, but it tries to help get us a little bit closer to normal, but we won't fully get closer to normal with those temperatures until the end of next weekend, because we'll see another rebound through the start of the weekend. Looks like we have another cold front that'll move through next Saturday into Sunday. So by next Sunday, we're back in the 50s, kind of more of those middle and upper 50s again. As far as rain, because even though it's cool out there, we've got the sunshine today, things are dry today, things will be dry for the next couple of days. I think we get through Wednesday and Thursday as that front is moving through and we get a little moisture ahead of that frontal boundary. That's when we can see some isolated to maybe spotty rain showers. Does not look like thunderstorms in the forecast, but we could see some rain showers, which at this point right now we like the sunny days, but wherever we can get some rain that maybe isn't any dramatic thunderstorms, the rain, the precipitation is helpful, because we are still talking about a lot of rainfall deficits. Let's walk through though Thursday first, what the trends are with our current long range outlooks, and then we'll talk more about the rainfall deficits and what we need to try to see some improvements. So as we've talked about before with these long range outlooks, don't take this as Bible as far as this is definitely going to happen, this is what your radar will look like. This just gives us the idea of the trends with pattern, with the timing, and maybe some detail on intensity. Thursday is still 4 days out from today, so there's room for this to change. We'll be talking about this through the start of the week, but just going to give you a heads up or a look at this now as you're thinking about the week as a whole, planning for the days ahead. We're starting this out at Thursday morning. This current run of your Euro model, this is what came from this morning's information, is projecting some rain showers across some of northern Arkansas. Through the morning and into the afternoon, that's moving further south into central Arkansas. This is projecting by around lunchtime Thursday, a good deal of us could be seeing some rain showers. So Thursday likely not going to be an ideal day to have lunch outside or to just spend prolonged periods outside because it's going to be a gloomy, likely dreary day. Now through the afternoon and evening, that starts to wean off to our south and east. By the time you're checking in with the evening crew, this is around 6 p.m. So around sunset, we're starting to watch those rain showers starting to exit the state. Looks like they're out of here fully by Friday morning. So this won't be a complete monkey wrench in your plans for the week, but Thursday just a day to highlight. Maybe make sure you have the umbrella or at least a jacket with a hood. So if there is some rain showers that develop in your neighborhood, you don't get caught off guard. Not a lot of rain is expected with this. I mentioned this is ahead of a cold front. That cold front sweeps through with some drier air. We won't get much opportunity or moisture present to produce much more rainfall. We're going to look at this from west to east because there is a bit of a color gradient. It's all green, but there are different shades of green, and that means different things. So extreme western Arkansas, we're thinking Fayetteville, down to Mena, DeQueen, Texarkana. That particular shade of green is indicating or forecasting trace amounts of rain. This is the 7-day outlook, so this doesn't include any of the rain on Thursday with that front moving through. And then if we do get a stray shower or two next weekend, Saturday into Sunday, this is accounting for that as well. Trace amounts across extreme western Arkansas. Then we get a little bit farther east, thinking about the Arkansas River Valley, Russellville, into central Arkansas, Little Rock, even a little bit farther south and east down to Pine Bluff and Monticello. This particular shade of green is forecasting 1/10 of an inch to about 2/10 or 1/4 of an inch of rain. Once you get into northeastern Arkansas, Searcy to Batesville, up to Jonesboro, that area, that darker shade of green is that 1/4 of an inch to 1/2 an inch. So closer to the counties and our coverage responsibility. General forecast that we're expecting with any rainfall over the next week is between 1/10 of an inch and 2/10 of an inch, at best maybe 1/4 of an inch, which by looking at our drought conditions and rainfall deficit as a whole, at best that 1/4 of an inch really isn't going to give us much improvement. Now last Sunday, if you happen to join, this was what the drought monitor looked like last Sunday. If this is your first time seeing this map or hearing us talk about the drought monitor, here's a little bit of additional context. These maps come out on Thursday. The resource or the office that produces these maps, they go into production on Tuesday. So they take into account all of the rainfall that has been seen from one Tuesday to the next Tuesday. They start developing the maps. The maps are then published on Thursday. So this is what we looked at last Sunday, which means this is the map that came out on Thursday, February 13th. Well, as of that week, we had a large area of extreme drought that dug through some of central Arkansas, the northwestern half of Pulaski County included in that, over into Saline County and Garland County, but also looking to our northeast, closer towards cities like Batesville, up towards Mountain Home, we've got some areas of exceptional drought. That's that deep maroon color. Now, across the state at minimum, we still have moderate drought, which was that tan color, and in between the orange color is areas of severe drought. Now, if you remember, we did have a little bit of heavy rain between then. That was right before Valentine's Day, between Valentine's Day and then this past Thursday. The monitor that came out on the 20th, I meant not the 20th, I meant the 19th. That map shaved off some of this red that was through some of Pulaski County, but we still got some of it in Saline County, Garland County, up to Yale County and Perry County. Even surrounding that, still a large area of that orange, that severe drought, and then still off to our northeast, we've got the areas of exceptional drought and extreme drought. So we had some minor improvements in the centralmost part of the state, but again, a couple of inches is not going to completely knock the drought out. And then over the next week, at best, the 1/10 to 1/4 of an inch we're expecting definitely isn't going to peel much back off of this red or even the orange. So as we get into the last week of February February, the first week of March. March 1st is the introduction of meteorological spring. March and April tend to be, on average, some of our rainiest months of the year. We're starting to enter that season in a rainfall deficit. So even if we do get into March and we get more than what's considered the normal with rainfall by the month of March's standards, that'll likely only just make up the deficit for rainfall to help us peel back some of this drought. This is something that meteorologist Nathan Scott made on Friday, actually telling you how much rainfall within a month's time you would need to completely rid those drought conditions in your neighborhood. So the areas that had the highest drought level, the exceptional drought towards the northeast, obviously it's going to take a little bit more rainfall than areas west that had more of the moderate to severe drought. Still going to take several inches. Again, this is what will be needed within 1 month's time to completely get rid of all drought conditions. So let's look at, because to your right hand side of this map is your legend. So we're going to work our way up from lowest totals higher up. Thank you, Perry. So looking towards our west cities like Fort Smith, Mena, Danville, Russellville, this tan color, that's indicating that you would need between 3 to 7 inches of rain within a month to completely rid your drought conditions. Areas surrounding that are still staying west, so to the north and to the south of that, 7 to 10 inches in a month needed to rid drought conditions. Getting closer to the centralmost part of the state, Little Rock up to Clinton, Mountain View, Mountain Home, or down to Hot Springs, Arkadelphia, circling around to Camden, Monticello, Stuttgart, the central part of the state, between 10 inches to 14 inches. So roughly a foot of rain needed to completely rid of drought conditions. And then of course the northeast part of the state, a foot to a foot and a half of rain is needed to rid drought conditions. So right now it doesn't look like we're going to get enough to rid drought. We'll be talking about drought conditions, wildfire danger, burn bans more and more over the next couple of weeks, likely, especially as the days are getting warmer, the sun is out for longer with such dry vegetation and drier fuels. The days that we have windy conditions like today, that'll give us prolonged windows to see opportunity for wildfires. Speaking of wildfire, let's talk about wildfire danger. Right now, moderate risk across much of central Arkansas. We've got some low risk to our south and east, but I would not be surprised if this is gone by the time we get it to the work week and more counties start updating things. To our northwest, we've got some high risk. That's that orange you see. We've got a number of burn bans in effect across some of northwest and north central Arkansas. More will likely be added again over the coming days and weeks because we're just not expecting much rainfall. Let's look though past the 7-day range. Let's look, as we get into more of March, because March kicks off a week from today. So the first week of March, this is the story that it's looking like. Much of the country, not just Arkansas, but much of the country outlined in this trend of what's considered above average temperatures. Obviously, averages relative to each location, but what we know here in central Arkansas was considered average with the temperatures your first week of March is a high in the afternoon around 59, 60 degrees and the low in the morning of around 38, 39 degrees. So above that could indicate some temperatures in the 60s in the afternoon, maybe some mornings in the 40s. Obviously, this map doesn't tell us what the actual highs and lows are going to be, but at minimum above average, again, 60s, maybe some 40s. Looking at that in the context of precipitation, this is favoring above average precipitation. And like I said a moment ago, once we get into March and April, those are typically speaking some of our wettest months throughout the year. So above average rainfall could be good. I don't think this means we'll see enough to completely be a drought buster, but it could be some rainfall that first week of March that tries to give some improvements. Any rain that does not include severe weather right now is going to be a good thing because it'll help rid the drought. And of course, as we're getting into spring and we get the frost and freezes behind us, more people are going to want to start planting their crops. Excuse me, let me take a sip of water. Sometimes when you're talking for prolonged periods of time, your mouth gets dry, and instead of coughing in the mic, I'd rather take a sip of water. So thank you for that. But like I was saying, right now, especially when you get into March and April, severe weather season, any rain that does not include severe weather is good rain, especially once you start thinking about the farmers and the planters that are wanting to start their crops over the next month to 6 weeks. It's going to be hard to do that when we're in a drought. So fingers crossed for rain. If we can avoid the severe weather, that's really what we want, but we need a good soaking rain where we can get it to try to give us some benefit or reduction to our drought conditions. So this is what we're tracking. Well, let me take this back so you can see this still with my head in a picture. So this is what we're expecting for your final week of February into your first day of March. Well, this is still on Sunday, so let me take this forward to Monday so I'm correct in saying your last week of February and first day of March, we are expecting this trend. So we start the week off on a cool note. So if today was chilly for you, tomorrow will likely be chilly as well. We start out the morning below freezing in the 20s. So again, make sure you and the kids are bundled up as you're headed to work and school. We do have some sunshine in the afternoon. So even though it's going to be chilly, we still got some sunshine to hopefully help you beat the Monday blues. Looking into Tuesday, we still have a cold morning on Tuesday with some high pressure in the vicinity. If you've heard me talk about it before, we've got high pressure in the vicinity overnight, wind speeds calm down, you don't have any clouds. That gives you the combination to lose all of the heat you've accumulated through the day. And if we didn't accumulate much heat, that sets us up for a cold night. But as that high pressure starts to shift east and winds are coming from the south again, we do get a little bit warmer. We're back in the 60s on Tuesday afternoon. Even warmer than that on Wednesday. Going to see some more 70s on the board. Thursday is when we have some rain in the forecast. Cold front starting to move through. That cold front doesn't make much of a difference temperature wise, but it is the trigger point for some chance of rain around the middle part of the week. Looks like that moves out of here. Rain is out of here into Friday. Friday giving us a little more sunshine. Still above average in the 60s. We'll see a slight rebound in the 70s to kick off next weekend. Then our next cold front is moving through Saturday into Sunday. So we'll see another opportunity for rain next Sunday with cooler temperatures, cooler but still considered closer to the norm for next Sunday. And in total between Thursday and Sunday, it really looks like between 2/10 of an inch to farther north and east you are in the state, 1/4 of an inch. But I think closer to central Arkansas, between 1/10 and 2/10 of an inch of rain. So this is not going to be a whole lot. But as we talked about with long rain trend for next week, the first week of March, does look like we could see another round of some rain chances in the forecast. Of course, we'll be watching that over the days ahead. You'll hear us talking more about this week over the days ahead and Thursday's rain chance as we get more updates. But if this was your first time catching one of these Sunday streams, I would like to encourage you to come back and join us again on Sundays. We like to do these every Sundays, if not every Sunday, as close to every Sunday at 2:30. They're always going to be at 2:30, traditionally on THV 11+, but they also make it to Facebook and YouTube. And we like to do it that way. So if while you hear me talking, you have a question, you can put it in the comment section and I'm able to give you those answers in real time. So I have not seen any questions. I've been keeping an eye on our comment section on each platform that the stream is running. Doesn't look like we have any questions. So since we don't have any questions, I'm going to leave y'all with this. I hope you have a great rest of your weekend. If you can, join us back here for your evening newscast at 5:30. Otherwise, if you can make it tonight at 10, we'll have news updates, forecast updates, as well as sports updates. And then we'll chat more over the days ahead. Have a good one, and I hope y'all stay safe.